Alright, let's move on to some basics. So first off, let's create a new Jupyter notebook file. So here I name it variables and data types. So in here we are going to talk about the basic variable types. First off, just want to make sure that your Python can run well. So print hello world here, and then to run it, just press play button here, or you press Control Enter. Alright. And other things to mention is that when you want to run just a selected cell, you can actually click here, run selected cell, shift enter, or also alternatively you can do control enter, which means you run the selected cell and do not advance. So if you want to stick with the same cell, you just press control enter. Okay, let's dive into the core building blocks of Python programming, variables and data types. So think of variables as containers that hold information and data types as the kind of information those containers can hold. It's actually similar concept to our high school mathematics, where you sometimes have variables and sometimes you have constants. Constants is like you wrote it only as simple as 30. Variables is like x, y, and z. So here we can name our variables as age and quantity, for example. So these are integers or whole numbers. So again, to run, we press play button or control enter. So here we created floats or decimal numbers in which Python will automatically detect whether the variable is a float or an integer. And then the next variable type is string or a text. Again, we can press Control Enter here, and then we will see the outcome later. So a string can be wrapped with a double quote or single quote, or also if you want a long text in Python, you can wrap it also with triple double quote. So here we can make a multi-line text, and also we can make it with a long text too. Let's demonstrate it here with triple single quote. Okay, so this is the alternative for the multi-line text. And also another thing to mention is that we can include variables, other variables within a string. So let's say we can, okay, let's say var in string. So we put an f in front of the string, and then you can either wrap it with double quote or single quote or whatever, like the triple here and triple double quote here is just the same thing. So you can put a hello world, and then you can put a curly brace to put other variable here, right? It also works with other variable types, for example, price. Okay, let's say you want to say the price is price, right? So it works this way. It also works with triple double quote, for example, right? The message is message, and then let's name it 1, 2, and 3. Yep. So all this will work, but if there's anything that is causing it to be error, then it will show it. For example, the message is message 2. We play it and it will say message 2 is not defined because we have not defined this message 2 yet, as opposed to the age, quantity, price, and temperature that we have defined before. So this is what's called runtime error. Okay, and there's another thing that don't worry, we will discuss about the error types in the later videos. For example, other error is syntax error, right? So this is a syntax error, which means that this syntax is not recognized by the Python interpreter. Alright, so in this case, we just clear up our variable names just now and let's come back to the correct one. And another basic variable types will be Boolean. So it will hold true and false values. So here we have is valid equals to true and then has error equals to false. Again, we can play that and see that there is no error here. So this this little information here, 15 and 14, indicates the number of times we press the play button. So if we play it again, it will be number 16. So it indicates like the number of execution that we have done. The Jupyter Notebook here is very versatile, where we can play this code first and then go back to the previous line, and it will actually show the 16 and 17. And to demonstrate this, let's say, actually if you see in this line, there is no variable called isValid, right? But because we already run this isValid, the sequence number is 18, we can come back here and print that isValid, and it will be recognized because this variable has been executed, means it's already stored in the memory. Okay, let's delete this for now. And then we are coming to printing variables. So there are multiple ways to print variables. So one of them is like you separate it by comma, right? So one thing about separating it with comma, you can put as many variables or constants even as you want, but it will be separated by space. The alternative for this is you can put an F sign like this as well. So an alternative for isValid here will be isValid, and then here don't forget to put the F symbol, because if not, what you are printing is that literal characters. Okay, so if you put F, you are printing the variable content itself. So depending on which one you need, you might want to use F or you don't want to use F, right? And then another alternative is that you can do it this way. isValid equals to isValid. You put a plus sign, which means concatenation, but we'll see what will happen here. So it says isValid can only be concatenated with string. So means this is a string, but this is not a string. This is a Boolean. So one way to do this is by converting this into Boolean. So in this case, this will work. But if you come from other languages like Java, the string concatenation works this way. In Python, you have a choice, right? Sometimes you want to use the F, you want to use the comma separation, or sometimes you want to put plus. But in order to put plus, all the variables that you put in there has to be string. So you need to convert everything to string first. For example, even for constants like 17, you need to convert it to string first, right? You cannot just put number 17 there, right? So this is again, it's a runtime error. So in this case, the runtime error type is type error. Okay? And another thing about variable is to check the data types. We can use this function called type to check the data types, right? So again, we have previously mentioned that age and price, age is integer, price is float, right? And Python will automatically detect the suitable data type, but sometimes we want to enforce it, right? So age equals to 17. One thing to note also, we can reuse variables, yeah? So if you have previously set the value of a variable, you can reuse it, right? So for example here, just to demonstrate, I'm going to print the age, the type of age and the age content itself. Now it's 17, the type is integer. If you want to force it to float, sure you can, by putting the float function there, or float constructor, right? So it will be recognized as 17, but when printing it, Python will automatically put like .0 to denote that it is decimal. Another example is that if you want a string of 17, then you can do that. So depending on which one you want, so think about it like, is it a variable that you want to do arithmetic operations on or not? So one example, one common mistake is, for example, phone number. Phone number is not an integer. It should be a string. So if you put like 016 blah blah blah, so this actually has to be string. So when storing it in database or in any variable formats, you might want to use a proper string wrapping for that. So again, it can be double quote, can be single quote, and so on. Right, now age here is recognized as a string. Okay, now coming down to simple arithmetic. So of course, arithmetic operations are only supported for variable with numeric types such as integer and float. So we can do this for example, but of course you are not able to do that for strings. But there are some exceptions where we'll discuss this in the later videos. For example, we can do operations like this 7 and then we put it in the square bracket times 3. What does it mean by that is just we are creating an array and then we multiply the content by 3 times. So this asterisk does not only work for arithmetic operations but also works for list operations. We'll talk about this later. Okay, so to wrap up, here we already talked about 4 variable types, which is integer, float, string, and boolean. Catch you in the next one.